So, taking a step back, Patrick Findaro, what do you make of the recent developments from the Trump administration front? Do you think is E2 visa on the line for some changes?
I think there could definitely be some changes to the E2 visa program. And, as you know, our clients are generally investing over $100,000 in a US business. It could be a franchise, as hence the name Visa franchise, or it could be their own independent business. Maybe they're bringing a product or service from their home country, selling it here in the US, or they just, have an idea. They're already living in the US. They start a business, but it's always kind of been around like $100K. Maybe change of status, $60,000 if you're already here because it goes through USAS. The Toronto consulate seems generally okay at $80,000, although we've seen approvals at less. So it's been like that since we started Visa franchise back in October, 2015, almost coming on 10 years. So the number hasn't really changed. There's no written amount for the E2 investor visa. The foreign affairs manual that dictates it with the Department of State, and that's what the consulate officers are looking at as they're adjudicating these cases, should be a substantial amount for a business. So if you're opening up a restaurant, probably 200, 300K plus is a substantial amount that you need to invest to open up that business. But, I talked to a technologist that now has his own company, 20 plus employees, originally came on an E2 visa. He invested $15,000, consulting company. $15,000 was in the bank account back in 2016 out of Colombia. For me, I think that's like a low chance of
How did
success.
it get approved?
And it seems like, I was pretty surprised when he told me that.
Crazy.
He was educated in the U.S., went to an amazing school. I think it was the whole picture that maybe the U.S. government put a bet on him and was like, okay, $15K, but this guy's he's on to something.
He's going to contribute.
And he was. He was onto something. But there's no minimum for the E2 visa, and they could be, there was the GAO report, the Government Accountability Office, did an extensive report on the E2 visa and interviewed all these stakeholders across USAS for those change of status, to mostly the State Department staffers and officers, and they looked at the investment amount, and only 3% was less than $50,000. For the E2 visa. A significant amount was in the 100K plus range. And one thing with the EB-5, as you mentioned, scams, frauds, the source of funds for the EB-5 is very strict, where you sold a house in Canada for 5 million Canadian, what's that, 3 mil US. How did you originally get the money to buy that house? They want to know that. Where the E2 visa, the source of funds isn't as strict. So you have guys, clients from Pakistan where they're doing business legally, but it's, they're getting paid different ways. Not everything's going through the banks. It's not a really clear source of funds, but they're in possession of those funds. They legally sourced it, and the consulate officers aren't going back 15 years if someone sold a house.
Right.
So, and I think that's something that will change too. We have to do like another video on the gold card.
The gold card.
I think he's going to get pretty looser on the source of funds, and hey, I don't really care how you made it, as long as you're putting it here in the US.
I'm trying to pay the national debt, man. Just bring in the money.
No drug dealers or terrorists, but if you didn't pay taxes in your home country, that's on you and that country. Here, park your money, and we've seen that in Miami. It's so many people buy apartments here. They declare on the tax returns in Brazil or Peru or wherever they come. Hey, not my problem. Money's coming into Miami, coming into the US. And I think, let's see with that. But I think the E2 visa could definitely go up. And with immigration, you don't want to wait around. These doors open up. Sometimes they close. Sometimes they get a little tighter. So we've had tons of clients approved already, this year in 2025, consulates like in Paris, Bogota, Toronto. So it's been smooth sailing so far. And
for us on the E2 front, absolutely, it's been smooth sailing. And I definitely agree with you when it comes to immigration. You kind of don't want to wait. And I've been in the investor migration industry for almost a decade now, and seeing how, rules and regulations change, and that kind of alters people's plans. But even for companies like us, who's been operational in the investor migration industry, which is kind of what we do. We cater towards investors, entrepreneurs, and top talents as well. But at the end of the day, even amongst us, we're like, okay, guys, how do we make sure we diversify our services?
Well, we were caught with our pants down when they got rid of. Basically, we had a lot of clients obtaining second citizenship in countries like Turkey, where you came from, and Grenada, and then they added to this omnibus bill that you have to be domiciled in that country for 3 years.
3 years.
And we had a lot of clients that were a year or less, and that was no longer eligible for the E2 investor treaty.
Right.
Before that, it was only UK nationals that had to be domiciled in the UK before applying for the E2 visa. We deal with very international entrepreneurs that they have one passport, the spouse has another passport, they're all over the place. They're not necessarily domiciled with the passport that they're using, at least in the prior 3 years. So that was tough, and that was a strategic focus for us at Visa Franchise, going into 2023 to really, hey, what are we going to be selling and servicing? And let's diversify, because, there are all different types of avenues to move to the US.
Absolutely. My whole idea is like, and I've been speaking to a lot of you guys as well, and some of you who are watching this video, we've probably spoken before, and I understand the fact that it's a very big decision and you guys need to, take some time and just go back and make calculations and everything. That's brilliant. You should definitely do that. However, you kind of want to understand the fact that, things could change for E2 visa as things are about to change for EB5. So while it is there, would you advise our people to sort of like take this opportunity and make the best of it?
Hey, look, most of our E2 visa clients get a E2 visa for 5 years. So it's not permanent. You can come, you could spend, a few days a year in the US. You could spend the whole 365 here in the US. And you have some time to decide if you want to go back home over that 5-year period. And it's more of, to get your kids fluent in English, get the US experience. Maybe your spouse gets a job and they're working in tech, finance, consulting, or whatever industry, and they have work authorization, and their career trajectory is gonna really jump up and scale up when you go back to your home country or elsewhere. So I wouldn't overthink it. You want to be prepared. You want to spend some time here, try to spend as many vacations here as possible. Go through all your PTO, all your personal time off here in the US. Try to understand the market, neighborhoods, and all that. But give it a shot. I don't think I've ever had a client that
got denied.
No. Well, we've had some denials. We haven't had many final denials where people tried twice. I haven't had a client regret the move.
Oh.
So even though they have suffered severe adversity, I have a client that opened up a franchise, and he wanted to close the business like the first 18 months as he opened during COVID. Now he's doing over $1 million of sales, settling with the family. The wife's got an awesome job. Kids are at a fantastic public school, but he persevered, and he's hitting $1 million plus within 2 years of opening the business in the US, and had his head down. But definitely there were many times where he would have loved to just say, screw this. I had a really good life back in my home country. I'm going to go back. But he's definitely a stronger person, and of course his family is stronger. And it's like kind of the whole package. When you move to the US, yes, it's going to be generally a good business opportunity, but you're going to take a step back probably for 2 to 3 years to take a step forward professionally. Mm-hmm. Very few people parachute into the US and they're, incredible. You have to have relationships. Like any other country, they go a long way. Learn the local culture. If you don't speak English fluently, speak English fluently. But yeah, I haven't had any clients regret moving on the E2 visa.